There is a mystery written into creation itself. Look at the stars in the heavens, each one different, yet together forming constellations. Look at the human body, many parts, each unique, yet together making one living being. So too it is with us. We were never meant to be the same, but to be different. Not to compete with each other, but to complete each other. For diversity is not an accident. It is a design, and when that design is honored, it becomes power. But when it is dishonored, it becomes division. The calling before us is not only to tolerate differences, but to celebrate them, not only to make room for others, but to empower them. From the very first breath of creation, diversity was woven into the fabric of the universe. When the Almighty spoke, light came forth, not one shade, but a spectrum of color hidden inside it. When he carved out the seas and raised up the mountains, he made the desert to blaze and the forest to bloom. No two snowflakes fall alike, no two leaves bear the same design, no two stars shine with the same brilliance. This was not randomness, it was intentional. The Creator delights in uniqueness, so too with us. He formed humanity not as copies, but as originals. Billions of faces, none repeated. Voices that carry different tones, languages that shape thought in countless ways, cultures that tell different stories, and yet all flowing from one source. Diversity is not man-made, it is divine. It is the very imprint of the Creator upon his work. Think of the body, it is one, yet it cannot function without its parts being different. The eye cannot replace the ear, the hand cannot replace the heart. Its strength comes not from sameness, but from difference working in harmony. In the same way, societies, workplaces, and communities become strong not when they erase differences, but when they embrace them. If the universe itself declares the glory of God through diversity, then how much more should we, who are made in his image, honor that design? Diversity is not a threat, it is a treasure, not a weakness, but a hidden power waiting to be unlocked. It is the signature of creation, and when you see it, you are seeing the handwriting of God. When the world fell into brokenness, division became its mark, nations against nations, tribes against tribes, brother against brother. Walls were raised, doors were closed, and entire peoples were cast aside. But into that brokenness, God spoke redemption, and redemption has always carried with it the power of inclusion. When Messiah walked the earth, he did not choose only the powerful or the learned. He chose fishermen, tax collectors, zealots, and outcasts. He touched the leper no one would touch, spoke with the Samaritan woman no one would speak to, and dined with sinners that others had cast away. With every act, he tore down the barriers of exclusion and declared that the kingdom of heaven was for all who would enter. Inclusion is not tolerance, it is love in action. It is not simply opening the door, but welcoming the one who enters. Redemption itself is God saying to the outcast, you belong. The gospel is not limited to a race, a class, or a culture. It transcends all boundaries. Paul declared, there is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus. That was not a cultural slogan. It was a heavenly reality breaking into the world. If redemption is God's ultimate act of inclusion, then every act of inclusion in our lives is a reflection of his heart. When you lift the one who is overlooked, when you give space to the one who has been silenced, when you draw near to the one who has been pushed away, you are living out the very story of redemption. Heaven is not filled with sameness. It is filled with every tribe, tongue, and nation standing together before the throne. And if that is the vision of eternity, then our call on earth is to begin living that reality now. Inclusion is not simply a moral choice, it is the very heart of redemption itself. True community is not merely people existing side by side, it is people living for one another. It is when your strength becomes my covering, and my gift becomes your blessing. And out of this mystery of togetherness comes something greater than any individual can hold alone. Empowerment. Empowerment is born when people are no longer threatened by the gifts of others, but rejoice in them. It happens when we see another's potential, not as competition, but as completion. In true community, no one is diminished so that another may rise. Instead, when one rises, all are lifted. Just as a fire grows brighter when more logs are placed together, so the flame of each soul burns stronger when joined with others. The scriptures give us the picture of the early believers in Jerusalem. They shared their possessions, lifted one another's burdens, prayed in unity, and walked in one spirit. And what was the result? A community so empowered that it shook empires, healed the sick, and transformed history. Their empowerment was not from wealth, armies, or political power, but from the bond of a community aligned with heaven. Empowerment is not only about leadership, it is about unlocking destiny. A word of encouragement can release a gift. A hand of support can raise someone from despair to hope. A voice that says, "I believe in you," can ignite courage that transforms a life. The fruit of community is not merely belonging, it is becoming. When you are surrounded by people who see you, believe in you, and stand with you, you cannot remain the same. But the opposite is also true. Where there is isolation, gifts die in silence. Where there is jealousy, potential is smothered. Where there is division, destiny is delayed. That is why true empowerment can never grow out of selfishness, but only from the soil of unity. When we choose to live as a true community, we do more than empower individuals. We unleash movements, we spark change, we release the miraculous. Empowerment is the fruit, but unity is the root, and when the root is strong, the fruit will always abound. The mystery of creation is this: the many were never meant to stand apart, but to become one. The universe itself testifies: countless stars, yet one galaxy; countless drops, yet one ocean; countless cells, yet one body. The power of the many is revealed only when they come together as one. So it is with us. Each life is a thread, but together we become a tapestry. Alone, a single note may sound, but when joined with others, it becomes a symphony. A single flame can light a room, but when joined with many, it becomes a blazing fire that no darkness can overcome. This is the divine design, that individuality does not disappear in unity, but finds its fullest expression. The scriptures declare that the body is made up of many members, each with a different function. The eye cannot take the place of the hand, nor the ear the place of the foot. Each member has its role, and the body only lives when each part fulfills its purpose in harmony with the rest. In the same way, a community, a nation, a people are made strong not by sameness, but by the joining together of different strengths, gifts, and callings. The danger is when the parts turn against each other, when the many forget they are called to be one. Division weakens, but unity strengthens. When the early believers stood in one accord, the Spirit fell in power. When the builders of Babel united in the wrong spirit, they touched the heavens. If even unity in falsehood carries power, how much greater is the power of unity in truth? The many in the one is not uniformity, but harmony. It is not the silencing of differences, but the blending of them into a greater whole. Just as the Trinity is three yet one, so we are called to reveal the image of God by becoming one in purpose, one in spirit, one in love. When the many stand as one, there is no wall too high, no darkness too deep, no force too strong to resist them. The power of the many in the one is nothing less than the power of heaven revealed on earth. From the beginning of history, humanity has been building walls. Some made of stone and brick, others invisible but just as strong. Walls of prejudice, walls of fear, walls of pride. Cain built the first wall when he turned against his brother. Nations have built walls to keep others out, and people have built walls around their hearts to keep others away. These walls divide, isolate, and enslave, but the heart of God has always been to tear down walls. When Israel came to Jericho, the walls fell not by human strength, but by the power of heaven. That moment was more than a battle, it was a sign. The God who breaks down physical walls also breaks down the spiritual and social walls that keep his children apart. The ancient world was defined by walls. Jew separated from Gentile, men elevated over women, masters above slaves. But Messiah came to tear them all down. On the cross he broke the dividing wall of hostility, making of the two one new humanity. Where there was exclusion, he brought belonging. Where there was separation, he brought reconciliation. Where there was hostility, he brought peace. Yet still today, walls remain. They are seen in racism, in classism, in the suspicion of the outsider. They rise in workplaces when voices are ignored, in communities when differences are feared, in families when forgiveness is withheld. But the call remains the same: break down the walls. For every wall that falls, freedom is released. Every wall that crumbles, destiny is restored. To break down walls means to step beyond comfort, to reach across boundaries, to speak with those you were told not to speak with, to love those who have been cast aside. It means refusing to be defined by fear and choosing instead to be defined by love. It means lifting your voice where silence has reigned and extending your hand where doors have been shut. You were not created to be a builder of walls, but a builder of bridges. And when you choose to tear down walls of division, you are aligning with the very heart of God. For heaven itself is a place where no wall separates tribe from tribe, language from language, or nation from nation. All are gathered as one before the throne. That vision is not only for eternity, it is a calling for now. History itself is a teacher, a mirror, a warning, and a guide. It shows us what happens when people honor the gift of diversity, and what happens when they despise it. From the rise and fall of empires to the struggles of ordinary men and women, the record of time cries out a single truth. Societies that embrace inclusion thrive, and those that suppress it collapse. Consider the Roman Empire. It ruled much of the known world, uniting people under roads, trade, and law. Yet at its heart it divided, privileging the elite while crushing the poor, elevating one culture while despising the others. For a time, it appeared invincible, but the rot of exclusion weakened it from within until it fell. In contrast, the early believers, though persecuted, practiced radical inclusion, welcoming Jew and Gentile, slave and free, rich and poor, male and female. They had no armies, no political power, no wealth, yet they transformed civilization. Why? Because inclusion releases a strength greater than iron and stone, the strength of community bound by love. Look also at the struggles of modern history. When voices were silenced, whether women denied the right to vote or people of color denied their dignity, societies stagnated. But when those voices rose and were finally heard, new strength was released. The civil rights movement in America tore down centuries-old walls of segregation. The fight for women's suffrage reshaped nations and opened doors for half the human race to step into destiny. Movements to empower the marginalized did not weaken society, they strengthened it. Progress came not from silencing the different, but from honoring them. Even in darker chapters of history, lessons cry out. When exclusion turned into oppression, whether in the Holocaust, in slavery, or in ethnic cleansing, the results were devastation not only for the oppressed but for the oppressors themselves. Division breeds destruction. But whenever history witnesses the choice to include, to empower, to embrace the diversity of humanity, life flourishes and societies rise. The lesson is clear. History proves that inclusion is not optional, it is survival. Empowerment is not charity, it is destiny. Every time a people chooses to honor the image of God in another, they step into blessing. Every time they refuse, they set themselves on a path of ruin. The record of history is not just about the past, it is a prophetic warning for the present and the future. What we choose today will write the story of tomorrow. You were not created by accident, your life is not random. Your story, your struggles, your victories, your scars, they are not just for you. They are keys entrusted to your hands meant to unlock the doors of others. The mystery of life is that your destiny is connected to someone else's and theirs to yours. Think of Joseph in Egypt. His betrayal, his slavery, his prison. None of it was wasted. What seemed like tragedy was in truth the shaping of a key. When famine struck, that key opened the storehouses of Egypt and preserved countless lives. His pain became someone else's salvation. In the same way, your trials, your lessons, even your failures are not only shaping you, they are preparing you to set others free. When you speak a word of encouragement, when you share your wisdom, when you extend your hand, you may be unlocking a dream in someone who thought their life was over. A teacher who believes in a child can ignite a lifetime of achievement. A friend who refuses to give up on another can turn despair into hope. A leader who makes room for new voices can release a generation into their calling. The smallest act may be the very key that unlocks the greatest destiny. But remember this, a key unused opens nothing. Many walk through life holding keys they never put into the lock, afraid to speak, afraid to step out, afraid to share what God has given them. But the world is filled with locked doors, hearts waiting to be healed, minds waiting to be awakened, lives waiting to be lifted, and you hold keys that no one else can carry. Your uniqueness is not just about you, it is about others. Your story, no matter how ordinary or broken you think it is, carries power. To hide it is to leave someone else's door unopened. To release it is to set captives free. The mystery is this: you may never know the full impact of what you unlock, but heaven will. So do not bury your gift, do not silence your story, do not hold back your hand, for someone is waiting on the other side of your obedience. Your life is not only a journey, It is a key, and keys are meant to open doors. We live in a world fractured and bleeding with division. Nations rise against nations, ideologies against ideologies, neighbor against neighbor. Families split, communities break apart, and the human heart grows colder with every passing day. Darkness feeds on fear, on hatred, on separation. Yet it is into this very darkness that you were placed, not to be consumed by it, but to shine within it. Light has no purpose in the day. It exists for the night. And so too you were not called to hide when the world grows darker, but to rise. A single candle may seem small, but even the faintest flame has the power to push back the shadows. One voice speaking truth, one heart showing love, one life living with courage. It can change an atmosphere, and in time, it can change the world. To be light means to refuse the ways of division. It means seeing the humanity in the one the world rejects and standing with the one the crowd mocks. It means choosing forgiveness when bitterness seems easier, and reconciliation when separation feels safer. Light does not blend with darkness, it confronts it, and yet it does not destroy, it transforms. Look to the example of the early believers. They lived in a world torn apart by empire, slavery, and prejudice. Yet they loved their enemies, cared for the poor, embraced the outcast, and welcomed every tribe and class into one family. They did not have wealth or armies, but their light was so powerful that it outlived Caesars and toppled empires. That same light has been entrusted to you. Do not underestimate the power of your life. You may think your influence is small, but so is a seed. And yet a seed has the power to grow into a tree that gives shade to generations. In a divided world, every act of kindness is a beam of light. Every word of encouragement pierces the darkness. Every choice to love instead of hate is a victory of heaven over hell. This is your calling, not to curse the darkness, but to shine. Not to add to the noise of division, but to be the voice of peace. Not to withdraw in fear, but to advance in love. For when the light rises, the darkness has no choice but to flee. And when the people of light stand together, they become a city on a hill that cannot be hidden, a beacon of hope to a world in desperate need. So the mystery is this: diversity is not the end, but the beginning. Inclusion is not the finish line, but the doorway. Empowerment is not the reward, but the calling. If the Creator made the stars different, and yet each one needed, how much more with you? Together, we are called not to build walls, but bridges. Not to compete with each other, but to complete each other. And if we walk this path, then we will reveal not only the beauty of humanity, but the very image of God Himself.